Hi, welcome or welcome back. I'm Eleanor, and today I have a special guest, my friend Shelley. Shelley and I go way back. We met in film school.
Yeah.
I dropped out and Shelley continued. Shelley is not as into poetry as I am. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
However, you're my favorite reader. So if I'm reading, a very interesting poem, I always want to get your opinion. So, yeah. Now, but we're not here about poetry.
Yeah.
We're here about self-help.
Yes.
And I don't think, a lot of people say poetry is therapeutic. I really disagree. I think self-help books are therapeutic. And you're my go-to person for that. So to give you an idea of what we do, we meet for coffee as often as we can. And I'll just start talking about something in my life. And Shelley always has a book that she's read that informs me of something extraordinarily helpful to do with that exact problem I'm having or issue I'm having. And I've been telling you for years, I think, you need to have your channel. You need to have a self-help book channel. And I finally got you here. So what we'd like to talk about, or at least I'd like Shelley to talk about, is her top 3 books that you've read this year, self-help books. Not necessarily the ones that that have come out, that are new, but new to you, that you read this year. So I thought maybe we'll do from number 3 to number 1, or maybe we don't have to rank them. Is ranking maybe not helpful?
I guess it's the thing to do on YouTube, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Everything's ranked. I don't mind. I'm sure the authors would accept being ranked.
So what's the first book that comes to mind, and why is it going to help me?
The first one is a book called Indistractable by Nir Eyal. And he's a great author, I think, because he's very down to earth and he's lived a lot of it. He has talks about his own struggles with distraction, with gaining weight and then wanting to lose it, with things in his own life that he's had to work on. And so the book Indistractable is all about trying to work on our distractions and becoming more focused. So he coined that term, Indistractable.
Okay.
And it's a good one just because we can talk about being focused, but that doesn't necessarily paint the same picture as I am indistractable.
Wow. So it's almost like a superpower that you can practice and so you can become better at not being distracted.
That's it. And it came from a little question his daughter asked him, which was, if you had a superpower, what would it be?
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, and I think the story kind of goes, I think he's either distracted when she was asking him, or I think an email from work came through. It's a story a bit like that, and he then, in pulling himself back and realizing she's more important than this email that's popping up, looked back at her and said, I'd like to be indistractable.
That's really, I swear I didn't know this when I said it's a superpower. I really did not. I haven't even heard of this book. I mean, you may have mentioned it, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I immediately, the minute you said that about distraction, I immediately felt guilty for the last time we met when I got a message. I mean, it was a message from it doesn't really matter. And I immediately turned to you and said, I'm just going to have to do this right now. Yeah. I still feel really bad about that, Shell.
No, the thing is sometimes we have to do that, and sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. And it's figuring it out, because there's times when you need to answer that message, or that if you don't now, you'll forget. it's fine. But I think and that's where I think his work is really good. It's not, screens are terrible and it's really awful. I think he worked in Silicon Valley for a bit. Another book of his is called Hooked, and it's talking about how a lot of app developers can use the things that hook us to make you more healthy. So things like, telling you to walk, apps that exercise apps, habit apps, those kind of things. Yeah.
Oh, that's very,
good.
Very interesting.
Mm.
I knew this would be amazing, but this is even better than I expected. Ladies and gentlemen, Shelley, the self-help guru. Okay, number two.
Number two is Mel Robbins' The 5-Second Rule.
The 5-second rule, okay.
Yeah. Which she as well has a new book out, but I haven't read that yet. Looks interesting, The High Five Habit. But the 5-second rule is just, I think, a game changer, particularly for people who wanting to sort of redirect themselves. It's also really useful for just getting out of bed those days that you're struggling to get out of bed.
Okay.
And that's what Mel came up with it for. She said she was going through a stage where there were a number of struggles in her life. She was making herself feel better each night by pouring herself a giant martini or some other cocktail. I can't remember what it was. And that made her feel temporarily better. But by morning, she was really struggling to get out of bed. And it came to her, I think, when she was watching a rocket launch on TV, that whole countdown, 10, 9, 8. And she said, tomorrow I'm going to be different. Tomorrow I'm not going to have one of those days that everything goes wrong because starting from not getting out of bed, because it can be that flow-on effect. And so she decided she would be a rocket in the morning and she would count down. And interestingly, it sounds really like this sort of, funny little trick. Will it really work? But it's one of those ones that interrupts the overthinking part of our brain and interrupts that dread or that, in just a minute I'll feel like it, all of those kind of things, and makes you just count, which changes your brain from the thinking, freezing kind of mode, puts it into action mode. Yeah, and you kind of have to make it a rule that on one you move. You can't. You sort of. It becomes sacred. But I found it really, really useful.
Oh, I need that. I really need that at this time of my life. Thank you. That's fantastic. Okay. The third.
The third is it's a self-help book that's talked about a lot, and for good reason. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. I've probably talked about it with you.
That is a very familiar title. I should say I still haven't read it because why would I read it when I have the source? Because anything that comes up in my life, you can access the chapter in that book. But that being said, I do think that, especially now with it being the end of the year, that time when we're making, decisions, or at least, hoping and planning for the future, for the next year, 2023. Maybe this will be my year of reading more self-help books. Yeah.
A lot of them are quite good as audiobooks. While you're doing something else. Yes. And you can just let it, wash over you. Mel Robbins' one, I think it went to number 1 as an audiobook on Amazon when it was first released. Like, it did really well as an audiobook in particular, because she's talking in a very natural way. Yeah, where James Clear's one, it started as a book, I think, first. But, it's just very applicable. His writing is very clear, which kind of goes with the name, James Clear, and very easy to apply in your life. Little things like when you decide on something you want to change, one, making it small, which is also sort of a version of the 5-second rule. It's a way of bypassing that dread or the amygdala in your brain going, oh no, it's sort of like the barking dog part, or the part that gets a bit about something. that can make you want to avoid things or think of reasons why not. So if you make a new habit something really small to start off with, it's easier to do. It can be one push-up. It could be a 4-minute walk, something that makes it really, really easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that where you got the habit of doing the exercise every time, like some sort of exercise every time you boil the kettle for tea?
That's it. That's what I was going to say next, is that he would say you make an implementation statement. I think he calls it that.
Nice.
And it's when you say, after X, I will do Y. And so you build it on top of, you sort of stack it. Yeah, it talks about habit stacking on top of something you're already doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're boiling the kettle, I will plank. When I wake up, I will meditate. Yeah,
see, for me, it's like when I boil the kettle, I think of you.
Do you?
I don't know if that's exactly what's meant, but I do think of you, and it makes me I
have
really
to get
should
back
implement
to doing my planking or whatever while I'm boiling the kettle. Lately it's just putting dishes away. It's not quite so life changing.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. So when did you, I never actually asked you, when did you start your interest in these sorts of books?
My dad reads a lot of stuff to do with health or relationships, or they're not necessarily self-help. But he would often over the years have a book that he's saying, you have to read this. You know, there was Steve Biddulph, and there was I think these books in the 80s that were Andrew Matthews, I think, with little cartoons in them. Okay. Yeah. So Dad was always interested in them. And I also think self-help, where with a fiction novel or whatever, you kind of have to go, often you need to read a little bit to then realize the magic you're going to get into. Whereas self-help, I can see one line and go, well, I need that. It's like,
this is
says it on the tin. Yeah. So it's very, for me, it makes me want to pick it up and improve.
Do you think do you find that sometimes there's a stigma attached to self-help books?
Yeah, I've joked about it in the past. Like I don't read that much self-help, but I'll tell you about this one.
Because you came out to me slowly as a self-help. Like, you just kept talking, every so often you'd say, oh, well, there's a book about that. And then it dawned on me, but slowly, I think that's your favorite genre.
Yes.
I mean, you enjoy a lot of different, forms of literature from what I can tell, but I think that's the one. And I see it differently too, because I think of it's palpable. Your excitement is just, it's wonderful.
Self-improvement. I want to be better.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. I think people are gonna love this. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now, if any of you love Shelley, which I know you will, do a thumbs up, or maybe just put a little comment, because this can be a regular segment. I actually think if I have a regular segment with Shell, you'll take over. Like I'm selflessly bringing him in. But this is, I think there's something absolutely fascinating about this that you can't get with poetry. It's so, there's a clarity and there's a practicality, and you can implement this stuff.
Yeah.
And you can get, I think actually self-help books go very well as a contrast to poetry, because you can get out of your head.
Yes.
And I think maybe that's also why we get along, because, you add this to my way of thinking, and, and I add weird, strange, difficult language to yours. I hope anyway.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks a lot, everyone. And don't forget, the only real property is the property of the mind. I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.